Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that I have plot synopsis and character bios for this issue. Kitty Pryde and Wolverine, number one in a 6-issue limited series. And here in the corner box, we got both of them. However, in the inside, we don't really get a Wolverine. Not in this issue. So, we are going to see Kitty go to Japan. So, this is drawn by Al Milgrom, but Chris Claremont is the writer. Um, Remember, Kitty took a leave of absence from the X-Men, so this is kind of what it's been up to. Now, Al Milgrom is a great inker, not so much penciler, so I'm not a big fan of the art. This is narrated by Kitty Pryde, all done in first person, so Lies is the title of our tale here. I do have several playlists. I have an X-Men playlist. I have a New Mutants playlist and an X Universe playlist. So feel free to check any of them out. Everything's done in reading order. So, all right. So basically, we're going to get a little exposition here as she narrates. So she's in Deerfield, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago, and she's an X-Men, and she took a leave of absence after Colossus, who's Peter Rasputin, basically said, "I don't love her anymore." Now, Chris Claremont is a writer. Al Milgrom is doing pencils and inks. Now, I love his inks. I love the thick brush. Absolutely, positively love that. I love when he inks someone else. Again, just not a big fan of his pencils, but it is what it is, and we are going to cover this because I cover everything in reading order. So this is what's happening during the time that Kitty takes that leave of absence with the X-Men. So Tom Orzechowski is the letterer. He is the letterer also of New Mutants and Uncanny X-Men. So this dude is lettering 3 books a month, and this dude is not just lettering 3 books a month, he's lettering 3 Chris Claremont books a month. Do you know how many words and this guy has to put? I mean, just look at just this splash page and look at all these words. So Glynis Wein is the colorist, and now editing is Louise Jones, and Ann Nocenti are both editing this book here. So, all right. So she left in X-Men 182, and I have covered that issue. So she's gonna visit her dad. She is Jewish, so they don't celebrate Christmas, but her dad gave her some skates for Hanukkah, and so he is going to the bank where he works. His mom says that her parents got divorced, and his dad is not doing very well financially. Um, so she says she sees this limousine here, and says that he hopes he doesn't get the hassle because he's not doing too good. And so he walks in, and the doors are locked. And here you can see the hours of the bank: 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Goodness, that was early back in the days. So she's gonna face through the wall, but she's gonna try to make sure no one is there to see her. So she goes in and walks through the door, but the guard is in there. And the guy's surprised because Miss Pryde, and he's like, "Hi, Mr. Casey, how you doing?" And he's like, "I'm just gonna go see my dad," and he's in the conference. And she won't disturb him if he's busy. And the guy's like, "I could have sworn I closed these doors." So she feels bad for sort of scaring him. Again, very Frank, a little Frank Miller ish, a little bit. Again, not a huge Al Milgrom pencils, but boy, can the dude ink. I would um, absolutely love if he inked most of these. I love that thick brush that he uses. Looking at the scarf, just oh. And so he walks in and there's fighting already here. Extremely awkward position. Discrepancies in your bank accounts. And he says, I've already explained. Regrettably, Mr. Pryde, while such altruistic behavior is to be admired, it cannot be condoned. Our proposition is most reasonable. I won't do it. Consider the alternative. You can't force me. All of a sudden, you see a slap. And Kitty Pryde goes, Dad. And she goes, that sounded like someone hit him. Open up. What's going on? And then she stops there. And this guy says, it is a child. And she's like, I want to see my father. And the big dude says, shall I remove her? And she thinks, just try, Buster. I've got a right to be here. And this guy says, allow her in, Shumai. Mr. Pryde understands our position. The decision is now his. However, Carmen, will you not introduce us to your most charming daughter? And she says, Dad, are you all right? I heard an argument. And Carmen Pryde says, leave her out of this, Ogun. And Kitty says, out of what? And her dad says, just business, hon. I'm afraid you've come at a bad time. And she notices his cheek a little red, which unfortunately the coloring of this time doesn't really help. I bet that creep by the door did it. If I hadn't yelled, they'd have beaten Dad up. Who are they and what have I barged into, she thinks here. Kitty, these gentlemen are representatives of the corporation that recently purchased the bank. And she thinks here, but the bank's been family owned for generations, ever since Dad's great-grandpa founded it. Selling it must have broken Dad's heart. That explains why he's been so distracted and upset. He couldn't have done it if he'd have any choice. Things must have gotten really awful. And she just in little says hi. Again, I do love the big brush, and I do compare it to Frank Miller-ish a little bit with Klaus Janson, because Frank Miller also does the big thick brush here. And Mr. Shumai is their bodyguard. Mr. Delano and Mr. Walsh are part of the North American management team, and Mr. Ogun is from the main office. And so Mr. Ogun says, this is a very great pleasure to make your acquaintance, Miss Pryde. And she thinks, I'll bet. Ogun's eyes linger on mine. And my first instinct is to run away and hide. I suddenly remember how scared I was the first time I met Wolverine. Without a word being said, I'd known instinctively what he was. Ogun's the same, she says. And so Kitty's dad says, they want me to meet the head of the corporation. And Kitty says, I don't mind waiting, Dad. We can go out to dinner afterwards. And she thinks, I got to stick close to him in case. And they start to laugh here. Priceless, young lady. What an image. You sitting patiently for your papa to go home. And she snaps at them. Why are you laughing? What's so darn funny? And Kitty's dad says, the chairman lives in Japan. He sent his private jet to fly me out tonight. I'll be gone a week, maybe longer. And she thinks, maybe forever, Dad. These guys are dangerous. Oh, silly me. And she thinks, what do I do now? Under the circumstances, I think it's best you return to Professor Xavier's school. And she thinks, if I do that, I can involve the X-Men. She says, no. Until I know the whole lot more, it's better this stays in the family. And she's like, oh, Dad, do I have to? I do like this panel. I love these empty panels, just that thing. So I like that. See, I don't just say bad things. You know what I mean? I may not be thrilled of his pencils, but I do, when they do something that I like, I say it. So, all right. And so, what was his name? Ogun? Anyway, he says, she's more than welcome to accompany you, Carmen. Shigematsu-san, my esteemed employer, is quite fond of children. Gee, Dad, that sounds fun. And he says, no, absolutely not. I forbid it. And she's like, but my decision is final, young lady. I'll brook no further discussion. He's, of course, trying to protect her. I do like the face like so. I'm sorry, kid, and I didn't mean to snap at you like that. I've got a lot on my mind, and I'm on a real short fuse these days. This once, will you please do as I say? I'll explain later, I promise. Sure, Dad, I'm sorry I upset you, she says. Here's a note for Miss Linsky, my housekeeper, plus your cab fare to the airport. Can you handle the change in your flight reservations? I'm a big girl, Daddy. I can take care of myself, and she thinks, and you too. Bye, kitty. Take care. You do the same, Dad. See you soon, she says. So they're escorting him out. Doesn't look very good here. And so she thinks, could Ogun and his boss be Yakuza, which are the mafia? And so, if that's the case, Dad was trying to protect us both, keeping me out of danger, and also preventing them from using me as a weapon to force him to do what they want. Suppose I'm wrong, though. What if I'm letting my imagination run with me? Here's my taxi. And so, only one way to find out. And she says, O'Hare Airport, please. And so, she gets to the airport, and she looks in there, and she is going to be heading to Japan nonstop from Chicago to Tokyo. That would be a long ass flight. Goodness gracious. All right. And so she teleports through and gets in here. They're going to go. This is a nice, I like this as well, silhouetted there. And so she's basically sneaking in, and with her powers, it actually works out quite good. So there they go. And so she uses her power kind of to look, and she's got to be careful not to touch any of the electrical system, because she short circuits the electrical systems if she goes through, and notices there's empty seats. And so she finds an empty one and goes to sleep here. So I Googled it real quick, and it's 13 hours for a nonstop flight to Japan here. So, all right. So the stewardess wakes her up here, and she's like, sorry to wake you, miss, but may I see your boarding pass? Wouldn't they check that in the beginning? And she says, I don't have one. And she goes, I thought so. We don't see many outfits like yours. I'd have remembered. Do you have a passport identification? She says, no. And she goes, how did you get aboard and why? Is this some sort of schoolgirl prank? And she says, no, it's my dad, he. And she goes, what do I say? What's that? I'm afraid he's been kidnapped by gangsters. I got no proof. All I even know, it may have been. And well, you're right. I did it on a dare. And she says, I'll have to report this to the captain. Are you sure you've told me everything? And she's like, uh-huh. I don't think that's what stewardess was say, even in the 80s. So here she's biting her lip. That's what this is. So, all right. So, the plane does not turn around and arrives in Japan. And Kitty has gone ahead and decided, I'm going to get out of here. And they're like, oh, the captain's going to love this. Fortunately, in that skating costume, the child couldn't have gotten too far. And of course, as she goes down, they're seeing her there. And so she is going to run away. They tell the police, but she hides there and keeps going here. She may need to, like, steal some stuff. And so she goes in and bumps into that guy and speaks Japanese here, says, what are you doing? And she apparently speaks Japanese too. Forgive me, honored sir, the bus lurch threw me off balance. And he's like, use the safety rails and be considerate. And she's like, yes. And so she does. And so she speaks Japanese. I forgot Professor Xavier had given them all a crash course, so she still remembers. And so they get in there, and I like this. Like I said, I like the panel composition here. So, all right. And so she doesn't know where to even begin looking for her dad, and then thinks, maybe I do. All right, so the head goon Ogun mentioned that his boss was somebody named Shigematsu, assuming that's the company he owns. I can get its address from information. And she says, bingo. The main office is in the Ostamachi district near Tokyo Station. According to the operator, bless her, that's only a few blocks away. So down she goes. I told you, no Wolverine in this issue. And so she arrives. Nice vertical panel here, kind of showing how high this is. And she says it's getting dark too, and those clouds look real nasty. I'm not dressed for rain. I'm not dressed for much of anything. $4 and change won't buy much, and 2.5 sticks of gum make a lousy dinner. And then she gets a raindrop here. That settles things. I have to find cover. I can't turn to our friend Lady Mariko. She'll call the professor. Hey, wait a minute. I've got the perfect place inside Shigematsu-san's own skyscraper. So very resourceful for a 15-year-old. I made that decision in the nick of time, and so she kind of can walk on air by concentrating, and so she uses her powers through and goes in. She thinks of Storm. She's unaware that Storm has lost her power, and so she's gonna take a nice nap in that comfy couch. And so she's gonna wait here. Now, she dozed off, and the cleaning lady found her. And so she's like, "Hey, let me explain." The guy just pulls up a gun and starts shooting. So this doesn't look to be like a normal thing. And this guy's like, he wasn't interested in taking me alive. He opened fire the moment he saw me. Nobody that paranoid, not even the CIA. These people must be crooks. And so this guy goes, I'm certain I hit her. The momentum must have thrown her through the window. We're 60 stories high. If my bullets didn't do the job, the drop surely will. Go on about your business, woman. I'll alert command. So, and she's like, oh, I left the skates. So now she's wet and cold. And so, look at this, the car with water on her. So, this is also very Frank Miller-ish. Instead of just putting certain things, you don't have to draw the actual building here. So, and so she's like cold and wet here. So, she walks in here. And she goes into the ATM here, and she's desperate. She doesn't want to steal money, but she has no choice. And so she puts her hand through, which is, of course, going to face through, and takes the money. And then here comes the alarm, and she drops the money. The least they can do is take the money with her. And so they're going after her, and she's like, I panicked like a baby. So, and so this guy's going after her. He thinks he got her, but she phases down into the sewer, which is gonna make things worse. Oh, sewers. Oh, I tell you, I don't know why in sewers. I've done Batman stories in the sewers, and I'm always like, do you know how many germs are in there? Ugh. Anyway, so I like this. This is actually beautiful, this here. So sunrise is coming, and poor kitty Pryde. You know, for someone that can phase into other places, she did not have to do this. So, all right. And so she's going to decide to call home. And so she rings, and guess who answers? Wolverine. So I guess he does appear, but I mean, he appears very shortly here. And he goes, Pumpkin, what's going on? And she's like, Wolverine. And she thinks here, and she hangs up. And then all of a sudden she sees her her face in on the news here. Back in the day, they had TVs right in the aisle so people could see their stuff. And she goes, "It's only a matter of time before I'm recognized. I better give myself up. But first, I have to explain this mess to Dad. He's going to be so crazy. I wonder if I'll go to jail." So she goes through and then notices someone's at the door. And this is the guy here. And so she goes and hide. And this guy goes, "I trust you spent a pleasant evening, Pryde son, and that you understand our agreements. In return for appropriate remuneration, we will launder funds from our illicit operations through your bank, and from there channel them into legitimate investments. Agreed?" And he finally says, "Agreed," and she yells out, "Dad." Next, terror. So, it's a really good issue. I like it. You just kind of have to get past Al Milgrom's pencils. It's serviceable. By no means this isn't horrible. I guess I should say it's not horrible. It's just when you're used to certain other artists, um, it, but this works. So, all right, Kitty Pryde and Wolverine #1 from 1984, written by Chris Claremont, drawn by Al Milgrom. Like and subscribe. I do thank you for listening. Goodbye.